chapter 201 of Shrimadbhagavatam, in the streets of Mathura. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mathura was a beautiful city. Every house had beautifully carved doorways, and the turrets in many houses were enclosed in sheets of gold or silver. The doorways were made out of beautiful dark wood and inlaid with gleaming metals like silver, gold, copper, or brass. The entire city was surrounded by a large and deep moat. There were many gardens, and these were full of flowering shrubs and trees. The air was laden with the scent of the flowers. They could see that only rich men lived in some of the houses. The signs of affluence were so apparent. There were terraces in many of the houses, and peacocks were strutting about in every house. The cooing of the pigeons could be heard everywhere. The cooing of the pigeons could be heard everywhere. The roads were wide and sprinkled with water, and the shops were filled with wares from all over the world. Vendors were selling their silks and silverware with loud voices. Everything was new and amusing, and the children from Vrindavan walked about the place as though they had never seen the like of this city before. They were walking along the Rajaviti, the widest road which led to the palace, and the people of the city were amazed to see these newcomers. They stared at them and spoke among themselves, speculating about their identity. As though did not hear the words of the people, the boys went on their way. News had already spread in the city that Krishna and Rama, the sons of Nanda, the performers of miracles, the youngsters who had killed so many asuras, had been asked to attend the Dhanur Yaga, and the people were sure that these were none other than the famed boys Rama and Krishna. The women crowded to the terraces and windows and other places to drink in their beauty with their eyes, and so the two heroes walked like lions in the streets of Mathura in the midst of all that noise and all that excitement. When they were walking thus, they saw a washerman coming towards them with a large bundle of clothes strapped to his back. Krishna stopped him and asked him what he was carrying. The washerman was the personal attendant of Kamsa, and the arrogance of the king had rubbed off on him to a large extent. He said, "I am the king's personal washerman. He is happy only if I wash his clothes. This bundle contains the silks which are to be worn by the king, Kamsa Maharaj." With a smile, Krishna said, "Look, there are so many clothes in your bundle. We have come to watch the Dhanur Yaga, and in our hurry, we did not bring good clothes. Please give us some silks from your bundle, and I assure you that you will not regret it. Come, give us some silks." The washerman laughed loudly and said, "You are too audacious, I must say. How dare you aspire to the honor of wearing silks fit for the king? I can see that you come from the villages. You are used to wandering around in the hills and meadows. Your rough clothes are a sure indication of that. That is perhaps why you beg of me for soft and delicate cloth which you might never have seen before. Get away from here before I get angry, or before the king's men come to know of your impertinence. They may beat you up." He looked around to see how the lookers on were responding to his high talk. Krishna was very angry. With a sudden blow from his hand, he hit the washerman on his head. So powerful was the blow and so very unexpected that the washerman received the full impact of it. His head fell apart from his body. His companions got scared and ran away from there. Calmly, And in a very leisurely manner, Krishna opened the bundle of clothes and choosing silks for himself and his companions, he dressed himself up in them, and so did Rama. The others put on the other garments, and what was left over, they left on the road and went on their way. There was a weaver on that road. From his shop, he brought them shawls which were very beautifully embroidered with colored silk threads, and they accepted them graciously. Krishna granted him great riches, and what was more, revealed his real form to him. From there, they went to the house of a flower seller. He had already heard about the coming of Nanda's sons. He never even dreamed that he would have the good fortune to have them in his humble house. When the brothers walked in, he fell at their feet and stood with folded arms. He said, "How can I return the favor granted me by you, my lord? I am but a flower seller." Krishna was pleased with the affection showed by the flower seller by name Sudama, and he stayed in his house for a while. Dressing himself with the flower garlands and the sandal paste and tambula, Krishna let Sudama give the same things to Rama and his companions, and then left the house of the flower seller. Krishna said, "Since you seem to think I am the Lord of Lords, ask me then anything you desire, and I will grant it to you." Sudama smiled sweetly at Krishna and said, "Having seen you and your beautiful face, having heard your sweet words and the affection in it, do you think I have any more desires? All I want, my Lord, is constant bhakti towards you. I want to have love for your bhaktas. Please make me compassionate towards all human beings, all living beings. These are the only things I desire most in this world." Krishna granted him all these and immense wealth and fame. The young men walked out of the house of the flower seller with happy faces and laughter. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamast. Chapter 202 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Trivakra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The two youngsters with their followers were again resuming their walk along the road to the palace. Walking towards them was a woman. She was a young woman, and her face was very lovely. In her hands, she held vessels filled with the perfumes and the paste made of sandalwood. The scent was so powerful that the entire road was filled with fragrance. Krishna looked at her. Poor woman, she was a hunchback. In fact, she had 3 bends in her body, which had made her a hunchback. Krishna smiled his sweet smile and asked her, "You are beautiful. Tell me who you are. What are you having in your hands? It seems to me the vessel is full of perfume. Who is meant to use it? Tell me. If you are so inclined, please give it to me. I want it, and I assure you it will bring you good fortune if you give it to me." The woman said, "I am a Sai Randri. I work in the palace. My name is Trivakra, as you can see." There was a sad smile on her face when she said it. She continued, "I am very good at mixing sandal paste with perfumes, and the king uses only the sandal paste prepared by me. But then when I look at you, I think you both are the only ones fitted to use my sandal paste. You are so very handsome, so young, so charming. You seem to be an artist in recognizing good things, and your words, your looks, and your smile are captivating. You talk so well and you are kind. I am happy you asked me for the perfumes. I will give them to you willingly." She gave the scents to Rama and Krishna and watched them with an indulgent smile as they smeared the sweet smelling paste all over their chests, their arms, and palms. Krishna decided that he would reward this woman immediately. He went near her and smiled into her eyes. He then placed his 2 feet on her 2 small feet. Standing very close to her, So close that she could feel his sweet breath on her face, he placed his two fingers under her chin and gently lifted her, raised her face and her neck gently and firmly. And those who stood around gasped with surprise. Trivakra was no longer Trivakra. She stood straight as a young tree, her limbs and her figure in perfect proportion. She was a very beautiful woman. She looked at herself and looked again to make sure that she had indeed been cured of her deformity. With brimming eyes, she fell at his feet and he raised her and asked her, "Is there anything else you want me to do?" And his eyes smiled into hers as he said it. She blushed and twisting the end of her upper cloth and with her eyes downcast, she spoke to him halting words. Smiles lit her face and eyes as she said, "You know that I was nothing else except you. Come to my house which is nearby. Take pity on me and make me yours." Rama was watching with a mischievous smile and all his comrades were sharing the amusement of Rama. Krishna laughed with glee and said, "My dear women, you are very beautiful and I will certainly give you what you are asking for. But then you have to wait. I have a task to perform and I can do nothing until that major task is accomplished. Wait for me till then." They passed on, with Trivakra and others staring after them. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Chapter 203 of Shrimadbhagavatam. The great bow is broken. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They would ask the passer-by about the location of Ayudashala, where the Dhanus was placed, the great bow which was used as an excuse to bring Rama and Krishna to Mathura. They reached the Ayudashala and entered it. The great bow was placed there. It was to be worshipped the next morning. It was a beautiful sight, awe-inspiring. The brothers stood with reverence writ on their faces. Guards were standing all around the bow and it was decorated with costly gems. It looked like Indradhanush, so colorful and so powerful was it. Krishna went near the bow and tried to lift it. The guards tried to prevent him from touching it, but Krishna paid no heed to their remonstrances. The people around were watching him and casually, very casually, Krishna raised the bow in his left hand. He then tightened the bowstring and while he went on bending the bow, there was a noise like a thunderbolt had dropped and the people saw that the bow had been broken. Kamsa heard the noise and sent his servants to find out what had happened. In the meantime, the guards surrounded the young boys. Shouts of, "Catch him, hold him, beat him, capture him and tie him up," could be heard. Surrounded as they were by many of the king's men, Rama and Krishna each took a piece of the broken bow and began to beat up their assailants. Kamsa heard what had happened and he sent his army to quell the disturbance. Rama and Krishna destroyed the army as well. After all this, as though nothing had happened to disturb their sightseeing, they went back to the road and continued their desultory walk. The citizens of Mathura were amazed at the feats of the young boys, and the news spread like wildfire. People came out of their houses, out of the terraces, on the doorsteps and cheered them. They knew by instinct that they would be delivered from the tyranny of Kamsa by these children, but they could not side with them openly. So great was their fear of Kamsa. Even as they were creating so much sensation in the city, the sun set. Krishna and Rama, with their companions, went back to the palace gardens where the Vrindavan clan was staying. They washed their hands and feet, and after eating rice mixed with milk, they slept. Kamsa, on the other hand, could not sleep. He had been told about the coming of Rama and Krishna. He knew about the killing of the washermen. He was trying not to be impressed by the miracles which made Trivakra straight and beautiful. The real frightening event was the breaking of the Dhanus and the routing of the king's army. He was worried as to what the morning held in store for him. The portents were all indicating some dread calamity for him. His dreams also were indicating his death, and he was afraid. He dreamed that he was riding a mule, that he had swallowed poison, that he was wearing a garland made of red flowers, that he was having an oil bath, and that he was being carried to an unknown destination. He got up from his sleep with alarm. The entire night he spent sleeplessly, since he had a premonition that the morning held something terrible in store for him. The breaking of the great bow was the cause of his fear of the boys. The prophecy sounded again in his mind, and he felt that it might come true. But then he told himself, I have great faith in my wrestlers. Mushtika and Chanura can make them look foolish, and they will surely be killed by these two people. Perhaps they will be killed sooner by my dear elephant Kualayapida. No one can escape from under its feet and the weight of it. Comforting himself with these thoughts, Kamsa tried in vain to sleep. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 204 of Shrimadbhagavatam. The killing of Kuvalayapida. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The east was red with the rays of the rising sun, and the entire city had dressed in her best. The Dhanuryaga would be a farce, since the Dhanu itself was broken. Kamsa had the town criers proclaim that there would be a great display of wrestling by the famed Mushtika, Chanura, Shala and Toshala. An arena had been erected specially for this, and the people were quite eager to see the different bouts. The place was filling up with the eager spectators. Bugles and trumpets made noise incessantly. The place had been decorated with flowers and garlands of flowers, and everything looked very gay, and the entire place had a festival look. People had come to enjoy themselves, and no one seemed to have any worry. No one knew, of course, that this was just a seemingly innocent show put up, and that the real purpose behind it was the killing of the two young boys from Vrindavan. There was a sudden silence, as though the roaring sea had been muted by a magic wand. Kamsa came with his innumerable guards. He stood on the terrace, and all the people cheered. He accepted their homage and seated himself on the throne. The vassals brought their tributes, their offerings to him, and laid them at the feet of their king. Nanda was one of them. After placing his offerings at the foot of the throne, Nanda went back and sat in the place specially allocated to him. His friends from Vrindavan also sat with him. The trumpets sounded announcing the arrival of the wrestlers, and one by one they entered. They ascended the platform and bowed before Kamsa. They were Mushtika, Chanura, Kuta, Shala and Toshala. They were formidable to look at. Krishna and Rama, in the meantime, had reached the streets of Mathura long before their father left the encampment. They heard the sounds made by the trumpets and bugles, and they went near the palace to see what was happening. According to the advice of Kamsa, several guards were following them wherever they went. As though they were unaware of it, the two brothers moved around with ease. When they came to the entrance of the arena, Krishna pointed out to Rama an elephant of immense size. They spoke to each other with their eyes. Krishna then went near the Mahut and said, "Listen to me. Please do not block the entrance to this public place with your elephant. We want to go in and see the fun. Do not obstruct the way." The Mahut, who had been stationed there just for the purpose of meeting the two brothers, said, "What if I refuse?" "If you refuse," said Krishna in a dangerous voice, which was extra soft. If you refuse, I will dispatch you and your big elephant to the abode of Yama. The Mahut's eyes became red with fury and he spurred the elephant to rush towards Krishna. The brothers had already decided that Krishna should tackle the elephant. The elephant rushed towards Krishna, caught him up in his trunk and tried to dash him to the ground. Krishna hurt the elephant with a blow from his fist, and the elephant in its sudden pain dropped Krishna. The young boy then rushed towards the four legs of Kuvalayapida and hid himself. The elephant could not make up his mind as to where he was. Finally, finding him, caught hold of Krishna again with his trunk. But like Garuda slipping out of the coils of a snake, Krishna slipped out of its grasp nimbly, and grasping its tail, he twisted it again and again. The poor elephant went round and round searching for his assailant, and all the while Krishna teased him by darting here and there. He would go to the front of the elephant, beat him with his fists, and again, rushing between his legs, make the elephant spin around. The elephant fell down, and to deceive it, Krishna also pretended to fall down. Thinking that he could now be killed, the animal dug his tusks into Krishna. The victim, however, escaped, and the tusks buried themselves in the ground. Extricating himself with difficulty, the elephant, which was now mad with pain and frustration, rushed towards Krishna. He grasped it with ease by the trunk and felled it to the ground. He then climbed the elephant like a lion, and with a twist of his wrist broke the tusk of the elephant. With the same tusk, he killed Kuvalayapida and the Mahut also. Krishna, who had killed Asura so easily, took a long time to kill this ordinary elephant just to let the watching crowd have excitement. He also wanted to infuse hope into their hearts and bring a gleam to their eyes which had been filled with despair. He wanted them to know that he could and would kill Kamsa. He could and would kill Kamsa with his bare hands as he did the great royal elephant Kuvalayapida. There was great cheering to be heard. Leaving the dead elephant, Krishna placed the tusk on his own shoulder. The drops of blood and rut which were on the tusk dripped on him. His dress was soiled and his face was covered with drops of sweat. Like a lotus is enhanced in its beauty by the drops of water clinging to its petals. Rama and Krishna appeared in the courtyard of the palace near the arena, and the crowd stared at them as if spellbound. They appeared different to different people. The wrestlers led by Chanura thought that they were two thunderbolts personified. Men who were watching thought that they were the best among men. The women thought that each of them was Manmata in human form. The Gopalas were thrilled that they were one of them, their Suhrit. The wicked kings thought of them as the punishers of their wrongdoings. To their parents they seemed like infants. Kamsa thought of them as death incarnate. The ignorant knew them not, but each one thought differently of them according to his wisdom or lack of it. The yogis thought that they were the ultimate truth, and the Vrishnis thought of them as their gods who had come as their saviors. Thus, all the 10 rasas, Raudra, Adbhuta, Shringara, Hasya, Veera, Dhaya, Bhayanaka, Bhibatsa, Shanta, and Prema, Bhakti, were inspired in those who looked at them. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.